This is nothing but that sports talk, where you have the game.
New York, stand up, and welcome to Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Rafique Louison, alongside a very special guest of mine. She covers the Connecticut Sun. But we got to get some New York talk because we see some crazy stuff happen this past weekend between the Nets and the Knicks clinching their playoff seeds, and the Liberty started off with a bang, courtesy of Sabrina Ionescu. What do you think about everything that's happened this past weekend with the New York Liberty? And what's your name?
Yeah. Hey, Rafique. Thanks for having me. I'm Jacqueline LeBlanc. I cover women's basketball for the Next, specifically Connecticut Sun. I'm also a contributor for herhoopstats.com and their great newsletter. So thanks for having me, first of all. This weekend was definitely really exciting in terms of, the New York Liberty. It's great to have Sabrina back. I think I wasn't necessarily expecting for it to be such an exciting game, especially that first one. I remember watching, I think it was tied at the point, or maybe it wasn't tied. But the first time Sabrina kind of hit that dagger 3-pointer a few minutes before she hit the final one, didn't think that was going in, and it did. And, doubted her again the second time and probably shouldn't have. But yeah, it was super exciting. Also really exciting to see her play in Barclays and just to see all the really cool pictures on social media and everything. I believe Jackie Powell, she covers the New York Liberty specifically for the Next Hoops, and she was at the game and she had a lot of good tweets. And I think she said that Lily Allen, the singer, was also there with her kids. So really exciting. I live in Connecticut, so hoping to get to Barclays at some point to watch the Liberty, maybe go see the Sun play when they're in Barclays. But yeah, great start for the Liberty. They're 2-0 with the Connecticut Sun, and they're the only teams to do that. So.
And they tied the win total from last year in the bubble, not to mention the fact that both of those games are against the Indiana Fever and Tiffany Mitchell. But it wasn't really an easy stretch, as you see, because the Indiana Fever, they're going to come back a little hungry the next time we play them. They managed to pick up Danielle Robinson from the WNBA Finals runner-up in the Las Vegas Aces. So that's a pretty good X-factor shooter from the perimeter and on the wing. So it's not like to say that you're not going to get that easy of a victory next time. And Indiana showed you that in the first game, and they were really competitive in the last game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, definitely it's really high on the Liberty right now, but also kind of have to taper myself back because they played the Fever twice. But I think the Fever also coming out strong this week or this year, this season. They didn't have a really great showing and lost to the Liberty twice, but really interested in Kaiser Gondrzik and what she can do. I'm really fascinated by Tiffany Mitchell and having Victoria Vivian's healthy and on the wing for the Fever. That would definitely help. And just seeing what Tiara McCowan is capable of doing this year. It's her third year. She took a little bit of a step back last year. But I'm just really excited for her in particular. I think this is her year to really shine and really take that next step in her game and see what the future of the Indiana Fever is about. So if Tiara can kind of take that next step along with Kelsey Mitchell, Tiffany Mitchell, Victoria Vivians, everyone else you said, I think the Fever could definitely surprise some people this year.
Yeah, and watching those games, you think that it would be an easy win since the Liberty defeated them the first time. But I've spoken to some players this past week, including Jasmine Jones, about how difficult it is to take out the Indiana Fever. She told me Tiffany Mitchell is no joke on the court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you could definitely see that. Tiffany Mitchell, she's really strong. She's really fast. And I mean, even, like you said, coming from Jasmine Jones, she's no joke either. I think she is going to do some really exciting things in her second year for the Liberty in particular. And she's already really good at defense. She might be one of their better defensive players. So yeah, I think that just speaks to the talent level they have. And, I know it kind of tapers because, how good are the Fever and the Liberty when they're playing each other for their first two matches. But I think later on in the season, you're really going to start to see both of them shine when, maybe they can try to make a statement against, kind of a more established team.
Yeah, and Liberty going to get their first test as they face the Minnesota Lynx later in the week. And then they also going to be facing teams like the Las Vegas Aces, just the Phoenix Mercury, and just name a couple teams later, in the next month or so. So, it's just a matter of how the Liberty going to match up with them because they didn't have Sabrina Ionescu when they faced the Minnesota Lynx both times. Now it's a good chance to see how she held her own against a team that lost at the buzzer to Diana Taurasi last Friday.
Yeah, definitely. And Minnesota, they've got some really great players. So unfortunately, I don't know, and I don't think Napheesa Collier will be back for their first game this week against the Liberty with the Lynx. But Sylvia Fowles is there. Crystal Dangerfield, she showed what she could do last year, and even in that first game that she played. So I think that really is going to be a big step, big stepping stone. And of course, I don't think you can ever count out the Minnesota Lynx when they're coached by Cheryl Reeve. And I'm sure Cheryl Reeve is definitely preparing for Sabrina, and she'll definitely have a game plan to kind of control and contain her. But yeah, that would really be a great first step. So excited to see what the Liberty can do after that.
Yes, I really am. But now let's change gears real quick and talk about the Connecticut Sun, because from what we've seen, they know they're not going to start 0-5 and go as close as Game 5 of the conference semifinals this time, because they managed to shut down the Atlanta Dream in Ari McDonald's debut, only giving up 2 points against her. And then you got to see a crazy crossover move by Tawana Bonner, who's been known to pull off plays like that and managed to shoot for the perimeter and be the offensive presence that we've all known for quite some time, especially during days playing for the Phoenix Mercury, who another team that they defeated. And it wasn't, the Mercury game wasn't easy because, again, they're facing the Phoenix Mercury team that was coming off a late second win against the Minnesota Lynx. And for them to actually hold them off, despite the fact that they only managed to get a combined 4 points from the bench scoring, that's saying something.
Yeah, for sure. I think, Coach Curt Miller, he said, like you said, in his press conference last night after the game, he said that everyone's talking about the Liberty being 2-0, but the Sun didn't get their, first 2 wins for weeks in the bubble. Like you said, they started 0-5. So they said that this 2-0 start it was really important for them. The first game on the road at Atlanta, and then their first game back at Mohegan Sun. At Mohegan, they only had a little bit more than 2,000 people. I believe it was 2,042 people in attendance last night. They have it capped at 2,300. But Miller has talked, in the past in 2019, the Sun had the best home record of all the WNBA teams. Their attendance is usually way up there as well. The last time people got to see the Sun play in Mohegan was that Game 4 of the 2019 finals, where the Sun, won it took it to a Game 5 in Washington. So that home start was really important to them, especially, considering that they didn't have Jasmine Thomas. She's expected to be back this week when they play the Fever on Wednesday. But yeah, really just a huge win for them, especially considering, all that they've been through in training camp. They really didn't have a lot of their veterans. Bree Jones, Tawana Bonner, they were 2 of the veterans who showed up a little bit earlier than everyone else, but still weren't there, the first day of practice. Jonquil Jones, she didn't get back in practice with the team by the time she was cleared after her COVID protocols. It was Wednesday, the Wednesday before the Friday game. So, JJ wasn't there until Wednesday. Brianne January didn't come to practice until that Thursday. So considering, all those factors, really not having the time to, develop that chemistry. Like you said, the bench, they only scored 4 points last night. They still definitely need to improve, but, they're very young. They're very inexperienced. So I think they'll have that time to develop and build that chemistry throughout the season, and they've talked about that as well. But yeah, that 2-0 start was really huge for the Sun, especially 2 really good teams in Atlanta. The Sun really had the size matchup there, but the guards are so fast. We're able to contain Ari McDonald, Kennedy Carter, Courtney Williams. She's a bucket. She was going, and just being able to contain all of them. And then at the Sun last night when they played Phoenix, Diana Taurasi was doing Diana Taurasi things. Skylar Diggins was really getting going at the end of the quarter. So while the Sun, held a lot of the lead throughout most of the game and throughout most of the second half, the Mercury didn't make it easy for them. They definitely, came back. They took the lead at one point close to the end, but the Sun, they really rallied and they were able to kind of get over that hump and finish the game. So it was really important, start considering everything that they've been through up until this point, and just, the 0-5 start last year and being disrespected and everything like that. So yeah, currently, 2-0, the 1 and 2 teams in the WNBA standings are the Connecticut Sun and the New York Liberty.
Exactly. And that's the stuff that you need to have. Like, since we're on the subject of talking about the 2-0 teams, like, which team are you buying or selling the New York Liberty being 2-0?
I think right now I am selling, but just, because I would like to see more than just, a matchup against the Fever. So I'd be really interested to see, where they land by the end of, by this point next week, kind of seeing where they stand and how they perform against some of those, more established teams that have really, really great players like Sylvia Fowles at Minnesota.
What about the Connecticut Sun?
I am buying in on the Sun. Even before I covered the Sun for the next hoops, I think, you really can't deny the impact that Jonquel Jones has when she's on the floor and when she's on your team. Obviously losing Alyssa Thomas is a huge piece. She is their absolute engine, their motor. She is their playoff hero. And she can't directly make her impact on the floor per se, but she is with them at practices. She was with them at training camp. She traveled with them to Atlanta. She is on those sidelines and she's really picking up kind of a coaching role this year. And, you've heard it through some of the younger players like Natisha Heidemann and their rookie Dejanay Carrington and some of the younger players they had on training camp contracts through the last couple of weeks. Alyssa Thomas, she is doing a really great job at mentoring those people, pulling them aside, telling them, you need to work on this, you need to slow down, just also giving them that confidence, but also, kind of ruling them in and letting them know when they need to step up, when they need to do something. Alyssa Thomas, she is there as much as she can be. And of course, DeWanna Bonner, saw what she did last year and even the 2 weekends, yesterday and Friday. I think she had 21 on Friday and 27 points last night. DeWanna Bonner is a bucket, and I think something that we've noticed over the last couple of days especially is DeWanna Bonner has been making her three-point shots for the most part, and I think a big factor of that is having Jonquel Jones back on the court and really having that spacing, really taking advantage of being able to stretch the floor. They're still playing with Bree Jones. She proved to be a huge piece for them last year, and they're able to incorporate it this year. They still have the same pieces. They just kind of need to move them around a little bit. And it's just kind of playing to different strengths and new strengths is how their assistant coach, Brandy Poole, phrased it a couple days ago. So, I think the Sun are going to surprise some people if they haven't already. The Mercury are really good, and people are still really high on the Mercury. Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, Bree Turner, Skylar Diggins-Smith. So I think that was a really authoritative win for them last night. They'll have the Fever at home on Wednesday. So I think, they can continue to build on that and hopefully take that game. But I think the Sun will do a lot better than people are expecting them to.
Exactly. I don't blame you for buying into the Sun starting off 2-0, considering you are working for them and covering them, by the way. Let's not forget, this is the same Sun team who a few years ago was in the WNBA Finals, with aka the last one pre-COVID, and then they almost made it again in the bubble. So why not buy them starting 2-0? This team is well put together, and Kurt Miller is doing a great job. His reactions towards the way Dejanay Carrington made that defensive stop at the end really expresses the way that I feel about this team. Mm-hmm. They're really battle-tested.
Yeah, I agree. And even thinking about last year, when they made it to that game final of the semifinals, they had a losing record. They were a number 7 team, but, they know how to click at the right time. It might take them a little bit, especially with this season, incorporating some of their veterans back into the role, having their younger bench, really pick up and learn some things. But I think they're really, making that step. And with Jonquel Jones on the floor, you saw what she did on Friday. It was like she never left, essentially. So I am really high on the Sun. I think they're going to do really well. Dejanay Carrington, if you look strictly at the box score, like for last night, for example, if you look at that box score, that doesn't explain the hustle that she gave on defense and really the impact that she had. She didn't play very many minutes, but when she was on the floor, she really made those minutes count. She brought it with her energy. She brought it on the defense. She had a bad turnover and she made a mistake, and she really, on the very next play, hustled to the end of the court, was able to I think it was either Diana Taurasi or Skylar Diggins-Smith or someone kind of, stuffed them up and able to force that shot clock violation. So, she hasn't been on the court too much yet, but I think she'll get a really good chance. And I think she's going to capitalize on her opportunity, even if you don't necessarily see that play out in the box score. And then just Natasha Heidemann, I want to, spotlight her. She had a career high 17 points last night. She's her third year in the league. She's their oldest veteran on the bench. People were joking at the beginning of Sun training camp that they had a group of young veterans, and Natasha Heidemann really led that. She's in her third year, but she was there from day one of training camp, leading that point guard spot, kind of filling in for Breanne January and Jasmine Thomas when they were gone. And I think, she really kind of took ownership of that. You could really see it in her confidence. You can really see it in the way she plays and the way she hustles. So, while she played 35 minutes last night, while she might not get as much playing time as she did the last couple of days, just, having Jasmine Thomas back in the lineup, I think she'll definitely bring that spark, offensive spark, and maybe on the defense too, that Curt Miller is looking for, and, really improve their bench and help lead them along the way too, because that's really the only area where I think there might be question marks for some people right now.
But remember, Curt Miller did say that you never hear about a WNBA team win a championship which is led by the 8th player. So if you was on a Zoom call, you would know that this guy literally dedicates himself to making sure that his starters are flawless. I mean, the point of being in the start lineup is to start off the game fresh and end the game fresh, and have a little bit of help from the bench. And Natasha Heidemann was no joke. She's a great spot-up shooter, whether it's for the wing or the top of the key. She can even get to the hole and score at will. This girl could not let up. You got to double team her, like how Ari McDonald was double teamed in the tournament. But yeah, that's just basically how you're gonna not do it if you're gonna stop her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, Curt said that last night, you're not ever going to talk about a championship team, 11th or 12th person on the bench. And, I think that's true. But you need to keep those people healthy. I think last year in the bubble, you could definitely see some of that fatigue go on, especially as the season went on. Just thinking about game 5 of the semifinals in particular, the Sun were doing really well in that first half. I don't remember how much they led by, but I know they were in the lead, and just that second half, it kind of showed that, they were a little fatigued. They probably could have used some help, and then in that fourth quarter, they shot a dismal, 27%. So, really, the bench, and especially their younger, inexperienced players, since they have, Dejanay Carrington, Stephanie Jones came in on a training camp contract, and she made the team. They're definitely not going to win the game for you per se. They might, maybe, but, they're really going to make what Curt is looking for is someone who can really make an impact when they're on the floor, and also really support the team when they're on the bench. And I think that's what, Curt and Connecticut has been known for over the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see how all that's going to develop as the season rolls along, since their next game will be against the Indiana Fever. And you think because the New York Liberty beat the Indiana Fever twice, guys, that they're not going to put up at least somewhat of an effort against the Connecticut Sun. Remember what we talked about Tiffany Mitchell? I mean, it's just a matter of how players like Natasha Heidemann and DeWanna Bonner is going to guard her.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know who's going to guard her and how they'll necessarily attack that. What you do know is Connecticut, their calling card is really defense. That is where they are going to take advantage of other teams. They did that on Friday, and the defense was a little sloppy last night when they went toward the end of the second half, but were able to get it together, and luckily the offense was going too. But so a little sloppy. Curt has talked about that too, that regardless of anywhere in the WNBA, May is not a pretty month in terms of pretty basketball. It takes some time. The Sun are not the only team that are integrating some veterans into their lineups and their rosters who are late arrivals from overseas and things like that. So I think, May will just be an interesting month for everyone. Like maybe someone will make a really good impression, and then, they won't necessarily do those things later on in the summer. But, the Sun know they still have things to work on, that the defense is certainly there, even though, turnovers have been bad bad. They had, 20 something turnovers on Friday. I believe they had 17 turnovers last night. Fouling has been a little bad. They had 21 personal fouls both Friday and last night. So there's some things that they definitely need to clean up, but they know that defense is their calling card. And to them, it's all about the energy they put in. So, if they can get that done, I think the offense will come along. And just as long as they can have some of that offensive consistency, I think they'll be able to kind of take on any of the teams in the WNBA.
That is also true. Speaking of any other teams in the WNBA, what are your impressions about Candace Parker's Chicago Sky debut as she was able to score a blowout win? Well, not really a blowout because the Mystics made it somewhat competitive against the team that I just mentioned the other weekend. And then also, so the Seattle Storm continuing their dominance over the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to watch the Candace Parker's debut in real time. That's something I'm trying to catch up on later this week. But I mean, who would not expect that to happen? I think Candace Parker is exactly what Chicago needed. Chicago's been a really good team over the last couple of years. And I think, adding Candace Parker is scary. She was in her, 13th year last year, and she won Defensive Player of the Year. Candace Parker is not on a downhill whatsoever. She is still a very elite player and one of the best in the WNBA. So I think Chicago is going to give a lot of people some trouble this year. Maybe the Sun are included in that bucket as well. But I think anytime you're going up against Candace Parker and not stuff that she's just doing individually, but also how she contributes to her team and how she leads her team. I think Chicago has a real good reason to be a serious contender, or at least be in those conversations at this point.
It is the same Chicago Sky as Connecticut Sun took on the playoffs last year. So, yeah. Yep. But this time around, they added Candace Parker. So, they're going to be at least somewhat of a threat, like in the top 4 threat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it seems like, Candace Parker is, the exact piece that they've been needing to really shore up their front court. Like, obviously, Courtney Vandersloot is an amazing point guard, and she's really crafty, and she's great at, creating offense and helping out and facilitating passes. But, some of their weak spots have been their front court. And, especially Stephanie Dolson, she's leaving for 3x3 basketball, and, who knows how long she'll be gone. So Candace Parker, she's probably going to, make an even bigger role for herself than she already has. One thing I am interested in seeing in Chicago and kind of how this works out is Chicago had drafted Natasha Mack, a rookie from Oklahoma State, in the second round of the WNBA draft. She was invited to training camp. She got waived near the end, but they actually picked her up on a hardship exemption rule. I believe it was either today or yesterday, to fill in for Steph Dolson while she's at 3x3, basketball. So I'm really excited to see what Natasha Mack does out of her opportunity. I loved watching her in college. I think she would make a really good fit in Chicago. And, I think she's a great player. So I really just want to see her, succeed and really go out there and compete. But, imagining Candace Parker mentoring and really playing a role and, helping Natasha Mack develop her game. If she can find a spot in Chicago and, she can make a good impression, whether it's in Chicago or, on some other team, I would love to see, what she can do. And I think Candace Parker is the perfect mentor for her.
Exactly. And I know that type of mentorship for her is going to help her a lot as she continues to develop towards making herself relevant to the Chicago Sky team as we get to the next 30 semi games of the season. Now let's get on to the rematch of the Las Vegas Aces and the Storm, if you catch it. Like, what are your impressions about the way the Aces started off? Because the Aces, when I spoke to the players, they told me that the part of the reason why they had that little fallout after starting the game off right, leading by like 9 points, something like that, was the lack of team chemistry, the lack of Agent McGothery, and the fact that the Liz Cambridge, she did score 16 points, she told me she played horrible at the beginning before she got adjusted to scoring it.
Yeah, I think, it might take a minute for the Aces to kind of find their groove. Opening the season against the Seattle Storm in a finals, rematch is obviously a really big way to open the season. Just losing Angel McCoughtry is huge. It's really sad to see that happen to her. She's a great player. She really made a huge impact for them last year. I loved watching Angel play for the Aces last year. So I'm really disappointed and really sad to see her miss this season. Obviously hope she gets better and hopefully rehabs, and I think she'll be with the team as well. But Liz Cambage, they haven't necessarily played with her since 2019. So that'll be an experiment. I know there were some questions around how do you exactly play Liz Cambage and A'ja Wilson together? That might not have worked out this weekend, but I think the Aces are still a really good team. Obviously it shows that the Storm are also a really good team. I think the Aces are definitely going to be in serious consideration, to be in those finals. They probably make it back to the semifinals. A'ja Wilson, is going to have an amazing season like she always does. Really, really excited to see what they do, but really interested in, how they kind of handle, Liz Cambage and getting her back in there, and, also adding Chelsea Gray to the mix, and, losing Kayla McBride and everything like that.
Yeah, it's going to take a time for the team to get adjusted to all the losses. Not to mention, they're going to be without Kelsey Plum for 5 games. They're going to really miss her shooting in these next 5 games of the season. So that is going to be a major problem early on. But if we know A'ja Wilson like we know A'ja Wilson, especially after seeing her score 24 points in that loss, they're definitely going to turn things around. You got an MVP on your squad, and you're being coached by Bill Laimbeer. Obviously, one of the greatest Chicago Bulls the greatest Detroit Pistons of all time, and the greatest coach in WNBA history, coaching like 3 different teams to at least the best record. He even coached Liberty to 23 wins one year.
Yeah, absolutely. A'ja Wilson was not MVP by a fluke. A'ja Wilson is one of the best, players in the WNBA. So I highly doubt, that she is going to let this continue. I fully believe the Aces are going to get it together. Like you said, Bill Laimbeer, he's right on that path as well. So it was a tough loss for the Aces. I'm sure they would have loved to open the season with a win, especially against the Storm. But I think it also kind of just cements how good the Storm are. And, they lost a few key pieces, but Brianna Stewart, Sue Bird, everyone else on their team, they still really make an impact. Jewel Lloyd, she's so good, and she can really just do anything. So hard opening win or opening loss for the Aces, but I'm confident they'll get their stuff together. They'll be near the top. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, that is true. And another team that needs to figure it out is Los Angeles Sparks, as they managed to lose to the Dallas Wings in Collar's debut. Like, what are your impressions about Collar in her first game of WNBA?
Yeah, Charlie Collier looked good. Having a double-double, that is really good. And, I think she'll make a really good impact. I was interested to see her in the starting lineup. I think she'll really, make an impact there. And, she might be able to earn a, permanent spot in the starting lineup. But I think she was able to hold her own. I think she showed, why she was the first round draft pick overall this year. But yeah, I think the bigger takeaway was really, what direction are the LA Sparks going? What losing like they did to the Dallas Wings, who, definitely may be an improved team. They certainly looked like it. Even, doing all of that, even without Arike Agumbawale on the floor for most of the first half. I think the Wings have definitely improved, and I think they might be in contention to make a playoff run this year and to get into that, final playoff spot. But wow, I think, the bigger question is, what are the Sparks doing? Where are the Sparks going? And I don't know. I was a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be a much closer game, not necessarily a blowout like it was. The Aglumakes are absolutely awesome. I personally really love Brittany Sykes. I think she's such a hard player. She's such a tough player. She's talked about how she's set a goal for herself to be Defensive Player of the Year. And I would love to see her compete for that and make that happen. But just, the Sparks overall did not did not really make a great first impression. So I'm wondering, and, against a team like the Dallas Wings. So, really, I think out of this opening weekend, I think the most, question marks lie around, where are the LA Sparks going, and, how do they kind of get out of that first game rut?
I mean, it's to be expected because Shanae Gumik, she just came back in to play the WNBA for the first time in 2 years since she skipped out of the bubble to work on the ESPN 144 documentary. We'll get more into that a little bit. I mean, I've had this conversation with Takira Foster Bestie from ESPN Radio and my friend Shantae about the 144 documentary. They were all intrigued by the storytelling behind the documentary that Shanae Gumik. We'll get more to that in a little bit. I mean, she just came back. Not to mention they added the new piece in Amanda Zawi B. So that's another team that's going to need some chemistry development in a certain way. And let's not forget that Simona Augustus retired to be assistant coach. So that should be a big help for the Los Angeles Sparks to turn things around. Well, I don't see why not. You only played one game and you lost, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not really fair to judge them off of one game. I mean, going back to what Curt Miller said, May is typically not a pretty month in the WNBA, just, considering who has not been in a training camp, who's coming back late from overseas, who's leaving to go overseas or, to have play for the U.S. Olympic team or anything like that. So, yeah, it was just one game. We'll see how the Sparks do. Really love having Simone Augustus on the sidelines as an assistant coach. I think a lot of people were shocked by that move. I certainly wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to see her back out on the floor for the Sparks, but I think that's a really great move for her overall. And I think the players, especially their young players, will really benefit from it. Taya Cooper, Arella Garantes was a rookie this year. The rookie Jasmine Walker. I mean, just, thinking about, that experience as a rookie, you're on the LA Sparks and your new assistant coach is, Simone Augustus, a 4-time WNBA champion, one of the greatest to ever play in the WNBA. So that's a really, unique and interesting opportunity. And I hope their younger players especially really benefit from that.
Yeah, I know that is crazy. But since we already talked about it, let's transition to what are your impressions about the ESPN 144 documentary after watching it, from the storytelling to the way it's put together to all the big crazy reflections? Like, what are your impressions?
Yeah, so I absolutely loved it. I think it was a really fantastic documentary. I'm actually going to try to watch it again this weekend with my sister. She's kind of a film buff, a documentary nerd, and she doesn't really know anything about sports. So I'm excited to show this one to her and, kind of introduce her to the world of the WNBA. But I think, obviously the really big takeaway is, the storytelling was amazing. The narrative was great. The filmmaking was really intimate and, really got to see the inside look to the bubble, but just, framing that overall arc that it's really not just about basketball. And, that was the whole reason why they were in the bubble. So really having that common thread throughout the entire thing, really showing those, for example, the closed player meetings and, seeing all those decisions that happened, the night of the shooting of Jacob Blake and, when they decided not to play and the very next day when they decided, what were they going to do? And I remember, as a fan, kind of going through that and thinking, how are they handling this themselves? Nneka Ogwumike especially, and all of the other, players in the bubble, that's a really hard thing. It's hard to be in that bubble, first of all, and then, to really, kind of go through all of that and you're isolated in the bubble and your whole thing was coming there to make a difference and really trying to make a stand and really, push potential change. And I just really loved seeing, the decisions that were made, how they all went about them, those close conversations. I think the way that was done and the way that story was told was really amazing. Seeing Breonna Taylor's mother in the documentary, I wasn't expecting that. That was a very emotional part of the documentary, but just seeing, the big difference that the 144, players in the WNBA made in her life, it was really impactful. And I'm really glad they were able to get her on camera and, be able to feature her in the documentary in such a nice way. So, yeah, I feel like I'm still kind of digesting it. It's been, like 5 days since it premiered now, but definitely one of the better documentaries I've seen. Shanae did such a good job. All of it was, really a lot more than what I was expecting. And, they still had some really fun parts too, just seeing people in their workouts and, practice and being in those kind of makeshift locker rooms, being in those games and kind of going through those moments, seeing Diana Taurasi, her quote with "Why can't old people dream too?" A scene that I thought was hilarious was the Atlanta practice at the beginning of the documentary, and they were all talking about defense and being better on defense, and Courtney Williams and Kennedy Carter and Nikki Holland were all there. I think they overall just did a really good job. I'm excited to watch it again and kind of digest it again. So what did you think?
I think it's very good. I mean, between the wholesome mother, daughter, son moments involving Dearica Hamby, to the whole insights of Sue Bird telling everybody, hey, you think the NBA is going to cancel the league? Why are we canceling the league? And to like the whole moment where one child has to be told, there's so much stuff going on. You won't understand. You're going to have to wait till you get older. And it really shows you that they value other people, whether it's by force or not. And I mean, I've argued about this with a few of my friends from high school. They always talk about, why were you spending so many times protesting with criminals? These so-called criminals and Jacob Blake and Breonna Taylor, they're just as important to human society as the people covering those stories. Nobody don't want to respect that. Like, let's be honest. This is a very powerful documentary that was executively produced by one of the greatest WNBA players of all time and one of the greatest influencers in the WNBA. And it's cutting stories like that. You imagine seeing players like Maya Moore and Renee McGothry either lead for at least that season or lead the league altogether.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it was really big. The documentary was really well received and really big in, the close women's basketball circles and women's basketball communities in the WNBA. I really hope this documentary kind of gets out into the mainstream. I don't know who was watching on ESPN. Hopefully a lot of people, and hopefully some new people who haven't been exposed to the WNBA and really haven't known anything about it, are watching the documentary and understanding, that's why my sister's not a sports fan, but I think it's really important that she sees this movie. So we're going to watch it together. So that's what I really hope it has a big impact. And just another thing is I really hope it leads to more WNBA documentaries and more documentaries about women's basketball and more documentaries about women's sports. I know they're producing the 30 for 30s now on the 1996 Olympic team and Maya Moore's story. I hope this just gets the ball rolling and, we're going to start seeing, whether it's women's basketball documentaries or just, movies about women's basketball stories. I just really hope, it kind of rolls into the mainstream and a lot of people who aren't super familiar with the WNBA, first of all, see 144 and realize the big impacts that people are having and the WNBA is having and how they've been doing this, basically forever. Being able to see that and realize the big impact that this team has, and, covered from social justice and Breonna Taylor and Say Her Name to also, what happened in Atlanta and, getting Kelly Loeffler out of office and, all these other things. So I really hope it, kind of starts the momentum going. And I hope this leads to even more women, even more women's mainstream basketball content, because I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more WNBA basketball content going forward. Mm-hmm. Now, it's time for the WNBA 25th anniversary jersey show and tell. I see you got one of the new jerseys that came out. Let everybody know what jersey you got on and why you love it so much.
Yeah, so I have to start off by saying that I love the new jerseys. So the one I'm actually wearing right now, it's a number 8 Liz Cambage Rebel Las Vegas Aces jersey. Couldn't decide which one I wanted to wear tonight. I also bought the blue Jonquel Jones Rebel Connecticut Key 6 jersey, as well as the orange jersey. I live here in Connecticut, so as soon as they were released on the first day, I went to the nearest Dick's store I could find, and it was just so surreal to see the merchandise in person in a store, to finally not have to buy something online and wait for it to ship and come in. It was just being able to, see the display, with all the other sports teams in the store was just really impactful, and I really loved it. And, it caused me to go overboard a little bit, but that's okay because I love supporting the W. So yeah, I got those 3. I absolutely love the Indiana Fever, Stranger Things, Rebel jerseys. I'm thinking about getting a Tamika Catchings custom one with her name on the back of the Rebel jersey. Another Chicago, their jerseys are really cool. I really love the black pinstripe ones that they were wearing the other day. Those are probably my favorite out of those ones. I absolutely love the Atlanta Rebel ones. I will probably get a Courtney Williams one at some point. It's just so hard because now I want to get a jersey from every team, and it's not always, the best for my wallet. So I'll have to kind of space it out and wait, when the time comes. But there are some really good ones, and I think they did a really good job. And like I said, it was just really so surreal, and it felt so exciting to see women's sports jerseys in an actual store where, I could enter the store and leave the store with the actual merch. So yeah, that was really cool.